Hello, and welcome back to Nerd News. Missed 2 uploads, so we have quite a bit to catch up on. Today we have trouble at the DCEU. We have the Game Awards, which happened on Thursday night. And we have Bleach Episode 10, which premiered yesterday morning. Let's get started. First up, we have the Game Awards, and we're going to run through this pretty quickly because I didn't really care about like 80% of the announcements. But the big ones I did see were Dead Cells Return to Castlevania, a Hellboy game which appears to be a roguelike game. After Us, Street Fighter 6 got a trailer coming out June 2nd. Hades 2 will go into pre-release, I believe, next year. Jedi Survive comes out 3/17, so just a few months away. That looked really good. I did like the first one, so looking forward to this. Death Stranding 2, I did not play Death Stranding 1, but I really do want to. I own the game, but I haven't had a chance to play it, so I'm going to have to get into that because Death Stranding 2 was announced. Diablo 4 comes out 6/6/23, so this June. Not a big Diablo fan, but I'm sure people are excited. Horizon Forbidden West is getting DLC coming out 4/19. Blue Protocol, Mario had a trailer which looked really good for the movie. Crash Team Rumble comes out next year. Armored Core 6 coming out next year. And Final Fantasy 16 coming out June of next year, June 22nd. Those were the big ones, but I don't really have a whole lot to say on those because none of them looked super interesting in my opinion. A couple looked fine, or like I want to play, like Street Fighter looked good, Tekken looked good, Final Fantasy, a couple of the other games they generally look good. Star Wars looked really good, but nothing super interesting or that I have really a lot to say about it. Just some good looking games that are coming out in the next year or so. But there are a couple I do specifically want to talk about that we didn't mention in that long list, and we'll start off with Bayonetta Origins, Teresa and the Lost Demon, and this comes out 3/17, so not that long. Funny enough, the same day as Jedi Survive, but I'm probably going to play Bayonetta first, to be honest. It looks like it's going to be a shorter game, like a action-adventure, platforming type game. Looks really cute, though. A lot of people are complaining that this is stupid looking, and like, if you're comparing it to Bayonetta, I mean, I guess, and it is a Bayonetta game, so like I can see why, but it's obviously a spin-off and obviously very, very different. It's a kid Bayonetta. I know it's still teen rated, but it looks like a kid's version of a Bayonetta game. And I don't know, it looks fun for what it is. I'm not trying to compare it to the Bayonetta series, which is obviously incredibly different, and it's just a really fast-paced action game, whereas this looks like a much slower, more artsy platformer game. My only real gripe with this is that it's $60. If this came out for like $40, I think it would be way more well-received. I think the $60 price tag is what's really hurting this game, but I'm definitely going to pick it up because it looks good. It for what it is, it looks like a fun game. I think people are just being stuck on the Bayonetta name that's attached to it, and because it's so different, people don't really want the different. But I think this is going to be a good game just in its own right, not necessarily based around, you know, the rest of the Bayonetta series. And the other one I wanted to talk about was EarthBlade. This is being made by the same people who made Celeste, and Celeste is one of my absolute favorite games in general, but probably my favorite Switch game and just game of the most recent generation. The game was fantastic. Absolutely loved the game. This looks like more, honestly. Obviously, it's a different game. Obviously, it's unrelated. It's just a completely different game being made by the same people, but it looks quite a bit like Celeste. It looks like it plays very similarly, just with more action focus, so you have like a sword, you can attack things a little bit more. So it looks like just a Celeste game with more action focus, and really looking forward to see more on this. It appears that they are targeting 2024, so that's, you know, a year plus away. But at the same time, it's an indie game, it's going to take time, that's fine. Really happy to see it, looks really good, cannot wait for this game. Probably my personal favorite announcement in the Game Awards is EarthBlade here. And quickly, my opinion on the Game Awards overall is they were kind of bad. I think Christopher Judge was the best part of it. The Game Awards is an awards show. While I get a lot of people watch it specifically for the reveals, That's not what the Game Awards should be about. It's supposed to be about presenting awards to the people who make these games and, you know, honoring them for their hard work and their craft. And people were complaining that this guy took like 5 minutes or something to do his speech, and I get it. There's a schedule. It was a little excessive, but at the same time, I'd rather spend a couple minutes on every person who gets an award, having their speech and being able to speak, because that's what we're here for. That's the point of the Game Awards. The game reveals are fun, and that's interesting, and obviously that's what Jeff Keighley hypes up about the Game Awards, but honestly, that's not really what an awards show should be about. You don't go into the Oscars looking to see movie trailers. That's not... You watch these things because you want to see what wins and see the people win awards. It's supposed to be about recognizing the people whose talent made these games. And I don't think that ushering this guy off stage was really necessary, and I don't think complaining about it was really necessary. He was by far the best part. You could tell how happy he was to win for his voice as Kratos, and it was deserved. Kratos is voiced amazingly in both God of War games, and he really did steal the show in this most recent one. I think it was earned every bit, and he deserves his few minutes to speak. I don't think it was that big of a deal. Overall, the awards show was kind of lame. Not really a whole lot of good announcements. I know I made a long list of announcements, and while most of them are fine, they're nothing special. There's no big announcement. I guess Armored Core is probably the big announcement, but I don't really care about Armored Core, and honestly, most people don't care about Armored Core. It's only getting hype right now because it's FromSoft, and FromSoft obviously makes the Dark Souls games, so while they as a company are bigger, the Armored Core games have never sold very well. The Armored Core games have never been massively popular. They're a very niche thing, so it's not super exciting. Like, it's cool that they're making a new one, but it's not the most exciting thing in the world. My favorite announcement from the whole awards was EarthBlade, and I'm sure most people will probably pick, like, Hades too. But honestly, other than that, there wasn't a whole lot being shown from, like, Nintendo or PlayStation that was really show-stopping. It was mostly just some smaller stuff, and that's fine. It doesn't need to be about the reveals, but if they're going to focus this heavily on the reveals, at least have some good reveals. I'd prefer if they trimmed down the reveals and focused more on the actual awards being given out to the people who make these games, but at the same time, they don't do that. They do focus on the awards, and if you're going to do that, at least have some good or at least have some good reveals. They focus so much on the reveals, they should be good, and I don't think these are that good. These were mediocre reveals at best. And next up, we have a update for Mario Striker coming in December 13th, I believe. This is going to be the last update, apparently, and we're getting Bowser Jr. and Birdo, I guess. Like, that's fine. Like, there's nothing inherently wrong with getting Bowser Jr. and Birdo. Those are both, you know, good characters who should be in a Mario sports game. But also, they should have just been in the base game. Like, none of these updates for this game have ever been very good. They're all just more stuff that should be in the base game, and the base game is already lacking. I do really want to play the game, though. It looks like a lot of fun, and I've heard really good things about the game at its core, but these updates have been kind of lame. Like, if you're going to do updates for the game, at least make them characters that we wouldn't be expecting. These are just characters that are cut from the roster being added back in. This is stupid. Why is this DLC, even free DLC, 6 months? I'd rather just pay for good DLC than get free DLC. Like, if you charged $20 for 3 DLC packs and it came each with 2 characters, fine. If they were good characters, like if they were interesting and it was fun, that'd be different. But Birdo and Bowser Jr., have they not been in a Mario sports game before? Like, were they not in the other Strikers games? I'm almost positive they were in the other Strikers games. So why were they not in this one at the launch of the game? They should have just been there to begin with. This didn't need to be DLC. This is ridiculous. And next up, we have the FTC filing to sue or suing to block Microsoft from acquiring Activision Blizzard King. And good. good. I personally don't really care who gets Call of Duty. I think that is dominating the conversation right now with the Microsoft acquisition, and I don't think that's the important part here. Obviously Call of Duty is a huge franchise. That's fair. But that's not the issue. Microsoft, in and of itself, is a massive company, and they're buying up one of the largest studios that aren't related to a company. People are focusing on Call of Duty, and that's a huge series, but people are kind of ignoring the other stuff. King specifically, which is why I mentioned it at the beginning here. Most people just talk about it as Activision Blizzard. There is a third segment to that, and that is King, and that is things like Candy Crush. Candy Crush makes a lot more money than people realize. I don't think that Microsoft needs to own Activision Blizzard King. That it's just a little ridiculous. We don't need more consolidation of the game studios. I would rather just see Activision Blizzard stay on their own. Even though I have issues with Activision Blizzard, specifically with the people running Activision Blizzard and really just their game content and release schedule, they do need to do. I don't think Microsoft or the company to be buying a major company like that. It shifts the landscape of gaming a little more than I would like. It's one thing when they pick up these smaller indie studios who need the money to survive, like they're probably going to shut down if they don't get acquired. It's an entirely different thing when they buy one of the biggest companies in gaming after they just bought one of the biggest companies in gaming. If you don't remember, they just bought ZeniMax. Elder Scrolls, Doom, just a bunch of stuff that is really big. That's a really big deal. And now they're doing it again with Activision Blizzard. That's two really massive third-party acquisitions. I don't think they need to own these things. I'd rather see Activision pieced out than all get sold to Microsoft. I think that is probably the worst case scenario. Even though I do think Microsoft owning Call of Duty on its own is not necessarily a bad thing, I think Microsoft owning all of the Activision Blizzard King everything is just a little too much. I think that is way too much for one of these tech companies. These tech companies do need to be reined in just a little bit. They are getting a little too over. They're getting a little too big, and this has been going on for a long time. But with a new FTC head, it's nice to see they're actually doing something about these things. They shouldn't be just acquiring these things. And the same thing is happening to Meta, where they are being sued to block a purchase of a VR company. And in the same way, does Facebook really need to be acquiring any more companies? They've already acquired so much to the point where they've basically knocked down every single app that challenges them. That's not good for competition. That is not a healthy competition. That is bad for just people in general. That's not something that they should be allowed to do. They should have been stopped before, but they weren't. The old FTC leader did not challenge any of these things, and they haven't for decades. It's good to see that the new one is actually stepping up and challenging some of these acquisitions. And whether they happen or not is, whatever, it is what it is, but the idea that they're at least challenging it's nice. It's something. It's a nice move in the right direction, in my opinion. Again, even if they fail, these challenges often do fail. They're not necessarily guaranteed. They can't just say, no, you're not allowed. They do have to prove a case against it, which is why they're suing them. But I feel like, at the very least, the challenge to these acquisitions is notable enough and worthwhile. And up next is a quick, fun one. Winds of Winter is 500 pages from completion. Good job, George. You'll be done that book. You'll be done that book just in time for the series finale of the reboot to Game of Thrones. That'll come in like 5 years. When they start making the new series, by the end of that series is when we'll get Winds of Winter. And hopefully he lives long enough to finish the series. We'll see. Who knows? And next up, we have some news coming out of the DCEU, specifically Warner Brothers, and all the nonsense going on there. There's a small list, but a list nonetheless. We have Wonder Woman 3 not moving forward in development, and After Wonder Woman 1984, I kind of can see why they would not move forward with more Wonder Woman. The last Wonder Woman wasn't very good, even though I did really enjoy the first one. The last one wasn't very good, and with their attempt to redo the DC universe now, with James Gunn in charge, and they're trying to fix everything and change things up, I can see why they might pause some of these projects. I do hope that she does come back to play Wonder Woman still in the DCU, but at the same time, I understand why they didn't go through with Patty Jenkins' third movie. The second one just didn't do that well, and the first one wasn't great. The first one was a fine movie. It was good compared to the other DCEU movies that we had at the time, but it wasn't exactly like a fantastic movie. It was a okay movie. It was a decent movie. The second one was just really, really bad, and when you have an okay movie followed by a bad movie, it's not really super likely you're going to get a third movie, and with all the restructuring going on, I felt like this was probably likely to happen. I'm going to be honest, considering we hadn't really heard a whole lot, or I hadn't really heard a whole lot about a Wonder Woman 3 since the second one came out, I just assumed they weren't making a Wonder Woman 3. So this isn't the biggest news in the world to me. The next one is Black Adam 2 is unlikely, and while The Rock says that he confirmed with the financial team that the Black Adam made like 50 to 75 million or something along those lines, even though we had reports saying that it was going to lose money, we're going to argue that, sure, it's making money. It's going to make 50 to $100 million. Fine. I don't think that that's enough to warrant a sequel. And again, with all of the changes going on in Warner Brothers right now, this is another one where I didn't even think this movie would come out, let alone a sequel get made. And I feel it's unlikely that a sequel will be made. Man of Steel 2 is now up in the air. And again, was anyone asking? Like, people were asking for a Man of Steel. I shouldn't say that. But do we really need a Man of Steel 2? Man of Steel was a terrible movie. Man of Steel sucked. Why would we want a Man of Steel 2? We need to just let the Snyderverse go. Like, just let it go. There was a few good casting decisions made, like 5, maybe, and that's it. So just let it go. Start over. That can be forgotten. We don't need to hold on to everything that Zack Snyder made when he was working for the DCEU. It wasn't very good. Let's move on. Just move on. And that brings us to Aquaman 2, which Aquaman was probably one of the best things to come out of the Snyderverse. And Aquaman 2 is supposed to be the swan song for Momoa. It's going to be his last big movie in the role, and I mean, that's good. Momoa did really good as Aquaman. Even if they've kind of failed Momoa, he did good. His solo movie was pretty good. And there's rumors of him being cast as Lobo, and I really like Lobo. Love the Lobo Christmas special. Big fan. I would love to see Momoa as Lobo, because Lobo is hilarious. Let's make that happen. That sounds like a way better and way more interesting movie than giving him Aquaman 3. Like, just scrap everything from the DCEU, start over. We'll get a new Aquaman. It's not that important. Let's get that Lobo movie made. That's going to be cool. And lastly for today, we have Bleach episode 10, which premiered yesterday morning. And this continues the Zaraki versus Unohana fight. And it was fantastic. This is way better than what was shown in the manga. In my opinion, the manga wasn't really that hype of a fight. A lot of people really liked it, and it seems to be a fan favorite, but I never personally cared for it in the manga too much. I like the concept behind it, but I don't think it's particularly well executed. This was done fantastically. The blood everywhere from Harbankai was really, really well done. Seeing the skin just kind of deteriorate from both of them, again, looked really good in action instead of just kind of across the pages. I think just the animation in general, that medium, worked way better for this scene in particular, and it was really good. There's going to be a couple of screenshots on screen, but this looked fantastic. The actual episode, on the other hand, I don't think was particularly great. While the first half was really interesting, the second half was kind of boring. It's just Ichigo and Renji continuing their trek through Squad Zero, this time ending up at the Zanpakuto creator's house, and It's fine, but there's nothing super interesting going on here. In my opinion, it's very bland and kind of boring. If you like seeing the Asauchi, I guess, but other than that, I don't think anything super interesting happens here. It's just a pretty laid back half of the episode. Overall, this is probably one of my least favorite episodes of the series right now, from these 10 anyway, but it's not terrible or anything like that. It's not even a bad episode. It's a very strong episode in the beginning, but the beginning's a little too good, and then the back half is just not nearly as good, and it makes for a weird balance where it started out really strong, and then by the time it was over, I was just kind of ready for it to be over. Overall, still fine. I'm looking forward to next week. I think next week is going to be the start of the new sort of mini arc that comes in between of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc, between the first invasion and the second invasion. Spoilers, I guess there's obviously going to be a second invasion. So between those two, there's a little mini arc. Can't remember exactly what it's called. Something in the Rain, I think. But really good arc. This is one of the best parts left for this part of the series. So really looking forward to starting that. Can't wait for next week. And yeah, again, it's a solid episode. Really strong first half, just kind of boring second half. I'm not a fan of the Squad Zero stuff. So this whole, 4 weeks now, and probably end up going to be 5 weeks of Squad Zero stuff, was just never going to be particularly good for me. And that's just how it is. It was never going to work for me specifically. But if you like Squad Zero, this is probably doing great for you. I'm just not a fan of Squad Zero. I think Squad Zero was a little underutilized and honestly kind of lame. Anyway, that's all the news for today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back, I'm going to be honest, probably Thursday morning with more nerd news. I don't think we're going to have one for Wednesday, but we'll see. We'll do our best. I should probably touch on this now instead of a question at the end, which is never going to get answered anyway. There's going to be a small scheduling change to Nerd News for the next couple of weeks. Pretty much just through the holidays. Might go into the first week of January, might not. I'm not 100% sure yet. It's really based on my work schedule, because obviously I have a real job and it's not this. Nerd News is going to be being moved to 2 to 3 times a week. Tuesdays will always happen just because of Bleach, and I do want to talk about that every week, so we'll always have the Tuesday video, and we'll most likely have a Thursday video because I'm off of work on Wednesday, so it's really easy to put one out. Other than that, I don't really know when we'll get one, so we'll see if that can squeeze a third one out sometime other than that during the week. On the other hand, the weekend videos will not change. We're still be weekend videos, and the shorts will happen when they happen, just like they have been. Nothing really changing there. It's really just the daily uploads. I don't have the time right now with my current work schedule. But once we get into the new year, we'll be back to the 5 days a week, and that'll be the schedule going forward until something else happens. For the most part, it should be fine after that, though. Just need a couple weeks to get my work schedule resituated, because shifts are moving around a lot because of the holidays. I'm covering people are taking off and stuff like that. Yeah, retail during the holidays, it is what it is. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll be back Thursday. We'll say Thursday with more nerd news. If we're back tomorrow, then, bonus. Bye.